So I'm here in the Mason barn with Dom, founder of Mason. Very lucky to have the opportunity. Thank you very much for welcoming us here into the barn. We're here to talk about the new and updated resolution.
Yeah.
Care to take me through just a couple of the details? Because I know this is a well-established platform. It's been massively successful for you, along with the definition as well. But it felt like time to just upgrade it and just bring it forward a little bit. Just take me through a little bit about the process behind that and what the details are there.
It's been that frame. It's the frame that goes up there. This is the frame number one.
This is the first one,
which was ISO tested.
Right,
so we
wow.
get that's a 60cm frame because we test the biggest frame because it's
it's more likely to show stress.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
So it started with that frame, which isn't all our frames are corrosion treated inside and out. By the way, that one wasn't.
Right.
But so that is number one, and then from that period on, it's been I could probably talk for a day, so I won't do that. But
okay.
But from that point there to the latest resolution, which you talked about earlier, it's been a huge journey. And actually, this one I had to. It was one of the first disc brake steel performance frames with internal routing. I think we were the first to do switchable internal routing with a steel frame because we developed that part, and no one else had that part.
And this was in 2014, right? This was when disc brakes on road bikes were still few and far between.
Yeah, and it was frowned upon. People were like,
Did you come up against
disc brakes make it looking ugly.
Come up against much resistance when you first released it? Was there any?
We didn't come up against resistance, but it was still very new. So, like I said earlier, my thing is to look at advances in componentry and tyres and braking and also tubing and everything. But so it came from there. So we were doing big tyres, we were doing big clearances, we were doing disc brakes, we were doing drop bar hydraulic brakes, we were doing switchable internal routing. Even in 2014, that was like, it was I think a bike should have a thing which squeezes the wheels to stop at the top here. It doesn't look right, all that kind of stuff. And people saying, oh, I love the resolution. Are you going to make a caliper version? I was like, no, because we're Mason progressive cycles, and I really believe that trying to squeeze dirty rubber blocks against filthy wet aluminium is really not the way to stop. It's kind of steam train technology. So, no. And people, that probably, people won't like me saying that maybe, but actually that's what I believe in for our bikes, which have to work all season with big tyres, over all sorts of conditions, then of course disc brakes is the correct thing to do. Yeah. There was all these, there were all these kind of rules, but I'm not interested in rules very much.
Out there to, as you say, progressive cycles. Yeah. So one of the new updates to the newer resolution, Resolution 2, is the inclusion of through axles at the rear. And I know that's only recently it was, previously, sorry, it was quick release at the back. Yeah. How come it's taken so long to take, through axles to the frame set? Yeah. For a steel frame, it's really, really difficult not to dumb the whole thing down because we had a really refined, lovely, balanced handling bike. And we could have quite easily said, okay, let's buy a chunk of steel from Taiwan and weld it in because we must have the latest standard because people are going to be saying, why haven't they got the latest standard? Yeah. That's a special thing for me. That's the first thing. Yeah. And I wasn't ready to say, okay, well, we just got to do this, let's mess it up. So while I'm here, I'm interested to pick your brains about some more topical topics in the industry at the moment. I've noticed a resolution downstairs that has been built up with one by. Now, it's, I wouldn't go as far to say it's a gravel bike, but it's certainly not limited to racing, etc. Is one by on road bikes something you guys are seeing more often? And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on one by on road bikes. Yeah, well, when we introduced the Boca, which is our, I call it adventure sport bike, for bigger tyres, 650B, 700C. Yeah.
we were selling quite an equal amount, say, of Ultegra Hydro and Force 1x. And actually now we've seen it shift a little bit towards 1x, and it's super suited to that off-road riding.
Definitely, I'd agree. I'm a keen gravel cyclist, and I'm a 1x convert there. But this influx into road, I mean, I wasn't expecting it.
No.
Were you guys?
I wasn't expecting, we were kind of seeing it happening, and we were thinking, we don't make race bikes, we make bikes for going very fast for a very long way, and they do win races, but they're ultra endurance races.
Transcontinental?
Yeah, transcontinental, for example. But we were seeing it trickling in, but then, I think it became interesting for people because they were using these bikes over all sorts of different terrain. They weren't necessarily having to get elbow to elbow with someone and thinking, I just need to snick down one and keep my cadence. That's not really what they were doing. So the big thing with 1x was, is there going to be horrible steps between the, in the range? And yes, there are more pronounced steps, but there are the same amount of ratios without the crossover. So for multi-surface use, which is what we call our resolution definition, they're multi-surface bikes, and the other ones are called multi-terrain bikes. Yeah. So for that type of usage, just having something very simple, with one cable, one chainring at the front, clutch mech so the chain doesn't ever fall off, doesn't even touch the chainstay, it makes a lot of sense, because it's just, okay, I want to go fast, I want to go a long way, I don't really want to think about the bike that much, and I just want something that works.
Do you think the consumer is wising up to bikes they are actually more suited to riding, than instead of the big brands and the big players making this mould and telling people this is what they should be riding? Yeah. There seems to be this change in thinking where people are actually wising up to this is the most appropriate bike for them.
Yeah, I think so. There is a certain amount of, from our point of view, we are seeing that people are really coming here, they're trying our bikes, they're really, really thinking about what type of riding they have to do, and they say, what bike should I get? And I'm going, well, just really think about what riding you're going to do and let that influence what bike it should be. We're not going to try and push any particular bike at you. I'm driven by the progression of that type of stuff, and if it's like, well, blinking out, one bike's going to really work well for this, then, let's use it. We're not, if it's a bit controversial, then great.
So what, yeah.
Yeah.
So here's another controversial thing for you then. 650B wheels. And you guys have been heroing this for quite some time. Again, similar to the 1x thing, similar even to just larger tyre clearances in general and disc brakes. 650B slick tyres. Tell me where that fits into today's road market.
The main thing about that large volume tyre, let's say 28 or 30mm tyres, is that tyres are pretty pointless if they're not in contact with the ground. So if you're rattling around because you've got a small volume tyre on rough surfaces, you're losing, there's a loss of control there. So a big volume tyre, which you can run at a lower pressure, just keeps you in contact with the ground more. And so, yes, it's more confidence inspiring, and also you can go further on it because you're not as beaten up on it at the end of the day. So we say with our bikes, you can probably put in an extra day's riding when all your other mates might be more fatigued. And that's the idea. They're not necessarily faster than a carbon bike on a mountain climb, but over distance, it's all about just being comfortable with your bike, and that allows you to enjoy the ride and go further.
Definitely a lot to be said for that extra comfort that you can gain from larger tyres. I've got one final thing to ask you. What does the future for Mason hold? Because you guys are progressive cycles, you're going to keep on progressing, I've got no doubt of that. Is there anything you can share with us at the moment?
We do have things in the melting pot. We've got new bikes we're working on right now. Once again, they are driven by advances in technology, of componentry, advances in what people want to do with they're riding, and by us watching what's going on and also thinking, God, I think we've come to the kind of edge of the end of the performance envelope with this bike in this certain riding style. What would happen if we did this? And that has actually become a pattern, because we did the resolution and definition, which were kind of big tyre road bikes. Josh won the TCR 2015 on definition, and then he went off into the Pyrenees, and he said, I've been wedging 35mm tyres in and they're getting too small. And I was like, well, it is a road bike, Josh.
Yeah.
And so then we made the Boca, which was an adventure sport bike for going super fast across the continent over loads of different terrain.
All sorts of terrain.
Yeah. And now we feel like we want to move that a bit further. And you know, I went to the Alps on my Boca and I was smashing down blue runs, and I thought,
where do we go next?
Yeah, it's come to the end. It's come to the end of that envelope, if you like. And
yep.
so I thought, right, I want to do something that's going to push it further. And so that's what we're looking at now. We're looking at something for Josh to win different types of races on and enter much more radical and challenging terrain. And that's the one that we've made this entire tube set with Data Shy for. Entire
right.
Custom steel tube set.
Well, I won't push you to say any more because I know things are still under wraps. When can we expect to see something the first of this?
We are committed to launching it at the NEC Cycle Show. So,
okay.
Yeah, so actually you are the first to hear about it.
Well, there we go. Guys, watch this space for new Mason stuff. Dom, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day today to have a chat with us. It's been massively insightful. New Resolution 2 is about now, along with all the other bikes as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.